Iowa football coach Kirk Ferentz has been suspended for the Hawkeyes' first game. It came out of the blue. We'll have all the latest right here on Locked On Big Ten.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and a play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Brought to you by Ultimate College Football Head Coach. It's a brand new mobile game that's completely free, no ads, 100% playable offline. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. We're talking about coaches today, that's for sure. What happened in Iowa? Plus, we'll have some other Big Ten news, including some hoops news you're going to want to hang around for, and our Pigskin picks. Football season is here. But this came out of nowhere. Iowa football coach Kirk Ferentz and his assistant coach Jon Budmayer have been suspended for the Hawkeye season opener August 31st against Illinois State for an alleged recruiting violation in acquiring former Michigan transfer quarterback and starting quarterback Cade McNamara. This suspension is self-imposed by the university after a possible Level II violation had taken place that was brought to their attention by the NCAA. This is bizarre. I'll tell you what I know. I will tell you what I think really happened behind the scenes, and I will tell you what will happen moving forward with all this. All right, first, what we know. To boil it down, it appears that Iowa contacted McNamara while he was still at Michigan before he entered the transfer portal before deciding to come to Iowa. That's a tampering violation. Assistant coach Jon Budmayer had a previous relationship with McNamara, dating back to when Budmayer was the Wisconsin quarterback coach, and he tried to recruit McNamara out of high school back in the day. Obviously, McNamara decided to play for Jim Harbaugh and Michigan instead at the time where he became the starting quarterback. You know, Michigan has, of course, since won 3 straight Big Ten titles. The first one, including a win over Ohio State in the regular season, was piloted by Cade McNamara in 2021. Unfortunately for McNamara and Michigan, they were blown out by Georgia in the college football playoff semifinal in the Orange Bowl 34-11 that year. McNamara, who had just thrown 4 interceptions the entire season, threw 2 more in that game, and then J.J. McCarthy, a young J.J. McCarthy, stepped in and finished the game. The next season, 2022, McNamara, still good enough to beat out J.J. McCarthy for the starting job, although it was getting close. He started the season opener versus Colorado State, where he was not spectacular. He completed 9 of 18 passes for 136 yards and a touchdown. He was benched in week 2 versus Hawaii. J.J. McCarthy steps in, throws for 229 yards and 3 touchdown passes. People are starting at this time to go, may have a different quarterback. Cade McNamara played in week 3 that year against UConn, but he was injured. And J.J. McCarthy took over and never looked back for the rest of his career at Michigan. He led them to 2 more wins over Ohio State the next 2 years, 2 more Big Ten championships, and 2 more playoff appearances, and, of course, won the national championship this past year. But immediately following the 2022 season, McNamara knew that he had been pushed aside by Harbaugh and McCarthy, and so 2 days after Michigan beat Ohio State to wrap up the regular season, not even waiting for the Big Ten championship or the college football playoffs, he entered the transfer portal. November 28th, 2022. 3 days later, and just 2 days before the Big Ten championship game, December 1st, 2022, Cade McNamara announced on social media that he was transferring to Iowa to play for Kirk Ferentz. That happened kind of quickly. The following season, Iowa made it to the 2023 Big Ten title game just last year against Michigan. Now, McNamara was injured, so he couldn't have his revenge game, if you will. But during various interviews leading up to that game, he wouldn't call Michigan by name. He called them that other team. And in the meantime, he offered a mental data dump for quarterback Deacon Hill and the rest of the Hawkeyes in an effort to give them enough intel to try and upset his former team. But obviously, Michigan was too loaded with talent. It didn't matter at all. But the timeline of events I just started to give you here at the end of the 2022 season to when McNamara announced that he was a Hawkeye, I think is very interesting how quickly that all came about. So here's what I think happened. I'm guessing that the NCAA, and I don't think you're hearing this anywhere else except for right here on Locked On Big Ten. I'm guessing, my opinion, that the NCAA has been so busy trying to nail Harbaugh in Michigan with its Burgergate and its Spygate investigations that it came across some communications, maybe a text, maybe emails, that have suggested that premature conversations took place between Iowa and McNamara while he was still a Wolverine. How else would this come to light? Perhaps something was already in the works between both sides before the end of the 2022 season, but that would be a form of tampering. And it appears that Budmayer reached out too soon to Cade McNamara. And now he and Ferentz will pay the price by sitting out the first game of the season this year. But that part of the story is complete conjecture on my part as to how it actually went down. Just making an educated guess on this, if you will. But to Kirk Ferentz's credit, and by the way, we're fans of Kirk Ferentz. He jumped in front of the story. He faced the media on Thursday. He admitted that he made a mistake, and he apologized to everyone involved, including the players on the current team. And he said it will never happen again. It came off as very, very genuine, very genuine. And of course, I think after a quarter of a century as the Hawkeyes head coach, he earned a lot of goodwill on the bank. And that at the most, and at the very least, the benefit of the doubt in this situation. So what do I think will happen moving forward? Look, Kirk Ferentz has been there a long time. I think he's getting tired of all the nonsense NCAA stuff really fast. And, like Jim Harbaugh finally said, I don't need it. I'm moving on. Maybe at some point, Kirk Ferentz gets to the same point that he's had enough of this goofy side of college athletics. I mean, to get nailed with something like this in this day and age, when kids are coming and going, they're committing, but then they're flipping and then they're going. So, I mean, everybody's on the move right now. It's impossible. So if somebody picked up a phone a day early and said, hey, if hypothetically you're interested in moving, are you interested in talking to them? What's wrong with that these days? I really don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think, again, this is NCAA meddling in things that really need not to be meddling in. I mean, Michigan had already unofficially disregarded McNamara, and he wanted to move on. Michigan had already committed to J.J. McCarthy. What's the big deal here? So anyway, while I think these infractions are silly, Kirk Ferentz got ahead of it, apologized for it, going to sit out this first game. But, and again, does he get tired of this kind of stuff? I mean, coaches just want to coach football. They don't want to mess with all this other stuff. And now college football's just gotten crazy with NIL and transfer portals and re-recruiting. It's unbelievable. It's a nonstop job. On top of that, Iowa's got a new athletic director, Beth Getz. He was pretty good friends, Ferentz was, with the previous athletic director, and Gary Barta. Beth Getz comes in, and she's the one that puts things in motion to get Brian Ferentz fired. Part of me thought that Ferentz would ride off into the sunset last year. It was 25 years. It was a good number. His son was going to be fired at the end of the year as the offensive coordinator. He overachieved, got to 10 wins, got to the Big Ten championship game with a team that was coaching, because the offense just wasn't doing anything, but the defense they were just finding ways to win games. It was a good coaching job. Thought it might have been a good way to just go off into the sunset after that improbable run last season. Nobody would have been surprised. And plus, he's 69 years old. Nobody would have been surprised one bit if he had stepped away last year. But, I remember post-game interview, he was asked about it. He goes, you know what? I really love the interaction with these kids and my players year in year. That's what keeps him going. All this other nonsense, this is distraction, but he likes being in there with the kids. But a suspension like this, it's another drop in the bucket. That'll take the fun out of coaching. It kind of leaves you left with the grind. So Iowa's going to be good again this year. And it's going to be similar to last year. I don't expect a lot out of this offense. But I think the defense is going to be pretty close to elite. So we'll see what happens. He's going to sit out this game, and they're going to roll. And I think it'll be another high win total for Iowa. We'll see what happens after that. Anyway, your thoughts on this interesting story that just kind of came out of nowhere. I'd love to hear from you. Many ways to reach out to me. You can be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share. Subscribe. We always ask you to subscribe, and we got over 10,000 subscriptions. Thank you. Now we also get to subscribe and share. Share with somebody you know that likes Big Ten information here. Share Locked On Big Ten. Check it out for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And don't forget to pick up some Iowa school swag, hats, shirts, pennants, something for the office. Whatever you want, it's right there along with all of our podcasts. They're listed chronologically. You can get yesterday's, the day before right there, or we group them by team or school. If you're an Iowa fan, this will be over in the Iowa section. Plus, you can get your merchandise there too at Talk Big 10. That's the number 10.com. We invite you to check that out as well. Okay. Now, we have a lot of other stuff we want to get to. There was an unusual injury I want to tell you about when we come back. I won't tell you who until we come back. No alternative uniforms in Lincoln. What's going on? And I got some basketball news, believe it or not, regarding the Maui Classic. And we're going to tell you which school we think has the best nil collective for college basketball in the Big Ten. That's all coming up right here in just 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. I'm going to tell you something here. All of our fans here at Locked On Big Ten, there's something really cool. It is the ultimate college football head coach. I'll tell you about this. And you can play this, and you can act like you're your own college football coach of your favorite team. And it's a game. It's free. No ads, 100% playable offline. You play on the go. You got to do everything, though. Not just coach games. I mean, you get to recruit your players. You get to hire your coaching staff. You get to call plays on offense during simulations. This is fantastic. All of it. All the stuff that Kirk Ferentz is dealing with right now at Iowa, you get to do. Just download the game. Visit ultimate-cfb.com. Ultimate-cfb.com. Or look it up on the app stores. It's Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. Check it out. All right. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. Thank you, especially everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe and share. Subscribe and share on YouTube. Share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten, no matter how you get this podcast, whether it's audio only or video. Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. And for a second listen, check out our friends at Locked On College Football. They got a podcast there every day. Stuff on the field, off the field, all there every single day. Locked On College Football, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Since we're talking about Iowa, very unusual injury I want to tell you about. Defensive coordinator Phil Parker. This guy's tough. He suffered an injury at practice that required surgery. He was saying wearing a sling. He's wearing a sling now. He said he got bumped into at a bad angle at practice, and it ripped off the rotator cuff, torn labrum, and bicep. Wow. It's like his whole arm just fell apart. He says it's no big deal. Again, torn labrum, bicep torn, rotator cuff just gone. That's just, wow. Going to be in a sling for another 6 weeks, although he wants his doctors to let him get rid of the sling. I mean, if you're on his defense and you get nicked up or bruised, how do you come out of a game when you got a coach with a torn labrum and he says it's no big deal? Maybe that's why Iowa's defense is so good every year. Maybe. Hey, yesterday we talked about former USC coach Pete Carroll returning to USC to teach a regular class on campus. And, after all, he's got more free time now since he was fired by the Seahawks. We also wondered how football coach Lincoln Riley would feel having Carroll nearby looking over his shoulder. Well, he's not really looking over his shoulder. They actually like each other. We got an answer because somebody actually had the same question and asked Lincoln Riley that. He said, we'd be crazy not to take advantage of having Pete Carroll around USC. And maybe that includes the football program too. Riley says Carroll has always been great to him on a personal level and a professional level. And he's been a great resource and somebody that he likes to pick his brain a little bit. So whether it's an official role or not, it seems like Pete Carroll is very welcome on campus at USC. All right, what's going on in Nebraska? They're ditching their alternate uniforms for the 2024 season. They're not going to have them. Last couple of years, there's like a game where you have a special alternate uniform, and they're not doing it. They've been doing it every year for about a decade, right? And Matt Rule says that they're not having one this year. He said nothing was planned. And this usually starts about 2 years out. You got to put the plan together, got to make them, got to market them, all that stuff. And there was nothing in the pipeline for 2024. There is something in the pipeline for 2026, though, a couple years from now. It seems to me, this is just a guess, another educated guess for you today. Maybe in the transition between Scott Frost and Matt Rule wasn't a priority for Matt Rule. And so nothing took place a couple of years or a year ago when he came in, and there's nothing in place here. Nothing came to fruition. I don't think it's a priority of Rule's either. He's a traditional coach. And I think if it were up to him, they would just stick with the regular traditional Nebraska uniforms every game forever. All right, I got some Big Ten basketball news for you. We're just getting ready for football season, but hoops is going to be here before you know it. And there are a lot of passionate Big Ten basketball fans out there. First of all, start with Michigan State. They're going to be in the Maui Classic. By the way, it's going back to its original location after the fire that burned down the whole town. They're going to face Colorado on November 25th to start it off, and then we'll see what happens from there. Meanwhile, Michigan will face John Calipari and Arkansas at Madison Square Garden, part of the Jimmy V Classic on December 10th. Miami and Tennessee will be the opener that night. New Wolverines coach Dusty May says it's an honor for him to be there 2 years in a row. He was there last season with Florida Atlantic, with his team that he was with. They lost to a pretty good Illinois team, you remember? 98-89. And in a recent CBS Candid Coaches series, 100 college basketball coaches were asked what basketball programs they thought had the best name, image, and likeness collectives for hoops. Now, keep in mind, this was 100 coaches' opinions based on perception and what they were hearing on the road out on the recruiting trail. So this isn't scientific or dialed in or anything. This is just other coaches' perceptions. Hey, who are the schools that are really killing it with nil? Who are we competing against? Trying to get kids. Well, Indiana cracked the top 5. Again, these were educated guesses by the coaches. But the Hoosiers were the highest educated guess in all the Big Ten. The list came out. Arkansas came in first. Coach Cal, he came there with a sweetheart deal. Kansas, a true blue blood. BYU, Kentucky, another blue blood. Those were the 4 schools mentioned above the Hoosiers. The Hoosiers coming in 5 on that list. Very interesting. And Mike Woodson in Indiana did haul in some pretty big transfers when the portal opened, and they were getting after it. So maybe the money's flowing in the right direction over there. All right. So coming up, we in our final segment of the week, we always do Pigskin picks. We're going to actually do picks and games next week. Can you believe it? But I got some other stuff lined up for you. You don't want to miss. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. It's coming up in 1 minute right here. Kind of a crystal ball into the upcoming season right here on Locked On Big Ten. GameTime is the app you need on your phone if you want to go to games. Frankly, if you want to go to games, concerts, theater, comedy shows. If it needs a ticket, you get the GameTime app on your phone. Boom, tickets. It's fantastic. So you can check it out, and they got a lot of great stuff available for you there, including their GameTime picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports and concerts and comedy, all this stuff. It's a feature you can turn on this app, and it just gets you the great deal. You got great seat views. like a picture of the seat view that you're about to buy the ticket for, all that, lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets to Big Ten football games, concerts, anything you want going on. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and the redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed, and a special Labor Day offer for you. 50% off of tickets to the Dodgers and Diamondbacks on Labor Day. That is exclusively on GameTime. So check it out with the GameTime app today. All right, it is time for a look at Pigskin picks. Let's do this. This is always fun. I pulled a few things together here since we got a couple games this weekend. Big Ten action starting next week. We'll have all of that. So I'm going to put it full screen and run through a few things with you. See what you think. Okay, if you're audio only, I'll describe it as best I can. Let me pull this down and we'll go full screen with it. So we do have two games this weekend, week 0, as they say. This Saturday, we got Florida State taking on Georgia Tech. That's in Dublin. The line is 10.5. Florida State 10.5. The over/under at 55.5. I think the over/under is right on the money at 55. DJU at quarterback. How's he going to do? But this Florida State defense is real. And people have been talking, and I hear it's the top 5 defense. So I think that ultimately they pull away from Georgia Tech. Maybe a slow start with DJ at quarterback, figuring things out, taking over that job. But then I think they win by a couple touchdowns at least. And then SMU and Nevada. SMU is a 25-point favorite. All I would tell you here is take the over. Take the over in this one. This will soar past the 56 points. All right. Now, I pulled the latest. We've done these over the summer, but these are the latest updated odds. Thank you to our friends at FanDuel, by the way. Heisman Trophy odds, Dylan Gabriel at Oregon at plus 550, Carson Beck at Georgia plus 800, Quinn Ewers at plus 1,200 at Texas, and Will Howard at Ohio State at plus 1,400. I like Dylan Gabriel as the clubhouse leader, as they say, as the season starts. They're going to win a lot of games. They're going to have a lot of offense. They're going to be in the mix at the end. Usually the quarterback gets a lot of attention under that scenario. Over in the right-hand column, we got win totals. Right now, Vegas is saying that both Ohio State and Oregon, 10.5 games. So probably 11-1 gets you into the Big Ten championship game. Penn State next at 9.5, a favorite for many to make the 12-team playoff. And then there's Michigan at 8.5 with Iowa at 8.5. I'm going to tell you this right now. I think that Iowa number is close. They might hit 9. Michigan at 8.5. I would go over because here's what's got 9. I think at worst case scenario, 9-3. I think people better get used to the fact that Michigan is going to be better than people think. Yeah, they lost 13 kids to the NFL draft. A lot of the coach is gone. All that's gone. There's some good talent coming back in to fill in the gaps. Michigan will be better than people expect this year. I don't know that they'll win the Big Ten championship, but they'll be better than you think. They'll be in the conversation. And then I put an asterisk here for Rutgers. They were a little further down on the list at 6.5. They started the season at 5.5 wins. Vegas upped it by a game because people were taking the over to 6.5. I think you can go even higher than that. I know they had a couple of key injuries here this week. I think Rutgers, a 7-team win last year, and most everybody back. New quarterback, Kaliak Manis. See how that goes. But they're going to win 7 or more games this year. That's my stone cold lock of the year. Rutgers, higher win total. All right. Meanwhile, Big Ten championship game winner, according to Vegas and our friends at FanDuel. Ohio State plus 150, Oregon plus 210. So they think it's Ohio State versus Oregon in the Big Ten championship, but they think Ohio State wins the game. Penn State getting love at plus 490, Michigan plus 850, USC plus 2,000, and Iowa plus 4,200. So we're starting to fade away there. And for the national championship, The odds as of today, Georgia plus 280 to win it all. Ohio State next at plus 400, and then Oregon at plus 650. Got the Texas Longhorns at plus 850, and Alabama and Ole Miss from the SEC both at plus 1,400. So there you have it. Those are our Pigskin picks, our previews, if you will. Next Friday, we're actually going to be doing Big Ten games, point spreads, totals. Love it. Can't wait. All right. So as always, I want to thank you for joining us. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Share this podcast with your people, your friends, your family, all that good stuff. And we always appreciate that, by the way. In the meantime, over the weekend, if you're catching up on some other episodes of Locked On Big Ten, interact with me. Hit me up at Twitter at X at Talk Big Ten, number 10. Comments on YouTube are always fun. That's what really gets it going. And then on our website, talkbig10number10.com, where all of our podcasts go, including this one. We'll file this one probably under Iowa, and also chronologically is the most recent one. Talk Big Ten. You can get your merchandise there too for your favorite team or school. Talk Big Ten, the number 10, talkbig10.com. No matter what you do, please subscribe and share. Subscribe and share. Subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And after you're done catching up on some episodes of Locked On Big Ten, don't forget our friends for a second listen. Enjoy Locked On College Football and their podcast, stuff going on the field, off the field, all right there. Locked On College Football available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is it. Got a couple of teaser games this weekend, like Florida State. Next weekend, we got Big Ten football. It is here. Congratulations. You made it through the offseason. Enjoy your weekend. Get fired up. We're ready to go. Can't wait to talk to you again. That'll do it for today. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten. We'll talk to you next time.